I'll be here by myself by the end of the week. Me and my wife. And then she'll leave. Okay, well, we'll do what we have here. So I'm thinking more and more, we're getting to mall, we can do more intimate kind of exploration. Let's start with Omagana Timarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshun Tanina Tashmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yen Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Vidati Swapadantikam. And we're going to be reading things here from the Bhagavatam. So we'll go Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, the other day we went over the front side of this a couple days ago. Let me get this open. The concept of I want to know. You know, everybody wants to know, but how do you find out? It's this side. So I was thinking maybe we'd go over a little bit of this side. So this side is called free will, opportunity, a choice at every moment. So before I say anything, this was actually something I remember discussing when I was in college. It's like college is a pivotal point for a lot of people in their life because up until that point, at least in America, I think it's true in India too, you're under the authority of your parents. So they kind of tell you where to go and what to do, and you go to school here, and you eat at this time, and you do your studies, and they just basically program your head to do what they tell you to do. But when you get to college, you have this unique opportunity to do things without having to get the approval of your parents. So in America, sometimes young people do some really crazy things. And it's an opportunity to meet other individuals, and sometimes you meet very interesting people. And in this particular case, the question that came up, which is very typical for college students, is this question of free will, free choice. So the challenge that was there is that, you know, they asked the question, do you have free will? So how would you answer that? Do you have free will? You do. How do you have free will?
Because I have options whether I want to go for a certain activity or whether I don't want to.
Speak a little louder so my wife can hear.
Whether I want to do certain thing or I don't.
Yeah, but those choices, this is the challenge, they'll say. But those choices are all dependent on all of your previous conditioning. So you might be raised in a family where your choices are to go to this place to eat, maybe meat in America. Or if you're raised in a vegetarian family, you're going to choose to go to a vegetarian restaurant, right? It's going to be dependent on how you were trained. So do you have free will?
That is a different scenario, but still in a particular situation. In a different situation, you have free will.
How do you have a different situation?
Like if you have skills and all, you can make your livelihood, you can earn by legal. Bona fide means, or you can always steal.
But or steal. Okay. So how would you answer? Do you understand what I'm saying? Your choices are already conditioned by the way you're raised.
To some degree.
To some degree, yeah. Jai Jai Gandharvika Giridhari Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. And I'm playing the devil's advocate. I'm poking at you, right? This is the conversation we had in college. Well, you think you're making free choice, but you were raised in a particular tradition by your family. They taught you certain values and ethics, right? Because there are other people, you know, for most of us who are devotees, Prabhupada said, we're coming here from the mode of goodness, right? The mode of goodness is that you have to at least come to the point of mode of goodness to even be able to step towards Krishna. You know, sometimes there's extreme examples where people jump over ignorance and passion and come, but for the most part, you have to have some sense of mode of goodness to be understand what Krishna's giving. So there are some people that they can't even begin to understand. We actually see, and the Bhagavatam tells us that they're completely trapped by the modes of nature, right? They're trapped. You can't communicate to them because they don't have the piety to be able to even start some conversation. I was telling my wife the other day, when I was a young boy in 8th grade, I think it was, we had a social studies teacher. And she was from Israel. Now in America, people from Israel, they're not so common. I mean, they're there, but in high school, a teacher was like, oh, she had a little darker complexion and she had a little accent. And one day in the classroom, she said, you know, you young boys and girls, she said, there's places in the world today where if you simply go up to somebody and you ask them what time it is, they just soon pull out a gun and blow your head off. And I was like, what? I mean, it really shocked me. I mean, this is why she said it. It shocked me in the realization that not everybody in the world is raised the way we are. And again, in America, we tend to be very proud. Everybody thinks like us, this kind of ugly American mentality of everybody in the world should be like Americans. Okay? And in fact, there's a whole, again, another one of these, what do they call it? Abhyas philosophies that, you know, again, when I was a young person, I believed this. It's like, if you just treat everybody nicely, then they'll treat you nicely. But that's not what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. He says, if you're in the mode of ignorance, anything can happen, right? So our conditioning is so strong. The argument that we kept falling into in college was, if you said, well, I think I have free will, I say, okay, well, what decision you make? What is that decision based on? And Bhagavad Gita is saying, I believe it's in chapter 3, he said, everybody is overcome by the 3 modes of material nature. And even Krishna says, what is it? I think chapter 3, one of the verses I'm reading is Prakrite Kriyamanani Gunakarmi Vibhagasha, right? You know this verse? What does it mean? It goes, the spirit soul bewildered by the influence of the 3 modes of the false ego thinks himself to be the doer of activities which are actually carried out by nature. That's a very complex thought, if you think about it. We think we're doing, right? We think we're thinking. So the question that comes up again is, do we have free will? Well, how would you answer it?
We have limited free will.
Limited free will. What is it limited to?
Some things we can choose, something we cannot choose.
Can you give some example like that?
We cannot choose that where I should take birth.
Right,
In limited sense, my education, I have limited choice.
right, right.
Whether I like to go into IIT, but I cannot go to IIT until unless I pass the exam.
You might have the desire, but you don't have the ability, you don't have the access, right? And some people would say, the other day we were talking about how there's 5 causes to every action, right? The person, the place, the endeavor, the senses, the supersoul, right? Well, you have control over, you say you don't really have a choice of your place of birth. So maybe it's not so much a conscious choice, like my next life, I'm going to get born into a rich family in Kansas City, United States. I don't think it works like that. But the consciousness, right? Krishna's saying, yam yam vapi smaran bhavan. The consciousness that we're developing, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita makes it very clear. There's so many verses. It says you are basically like a piece of clay. You're sort of molding your consciousness into where you're going to end up. So if you have, you know, Prabhupada was humored because one of the things that hippies used to do is they take off their clothes and run all over the place. And Prabhupada said, oh, they want to run around naked. He said, then they can be born into a tree body and stand there naked for 100 years, right? So it doesn't quite work so mechanically the way we like to think, but there is something there that determines. So even that, in a subtle way, we do have a little control. Yeah, we do. So, but this verse is saying you're not the doer, right? You're not the doer. So then this becomes a whole other dilemma that there are people in the West who say, the word that's used for this is called fatalism. Are you familiar with this word, fatalism? You know what it means? A fatal, it's like an inevitable, okay? So it's a Fatalism means whatever is going to happen is going to happen. So if you're, and to a certain extent, we believe this in our Christian conscious philosophy. Rake Krishna Morike, More Krishna Rakeke. If Krishna wants to get you, there's nothing you're going to be able to do. And if Krishna wants to protect this coronavirus, this is a good example, right? Everybody's hiding. So maybe they get saved from the coronavirus and then they turn around and stick their finger in a wall socket. They're finished. So there's so many ways that Krishna can ultimately accomplish what he wants to accomplish. Fatalism is this concept that I think there's a Vedic concept too, what do you call it, the Jyotish, I think, which says, that's some kind of astrological thing or similar to astrology, where they can tell you that this part of your life is going to either go very well for you, or you're going to have a lot of difficulties, right? So how can they say that? Because to a certain extent, there is a karmic record, right? And that karmic record is going to unfold. So if that karmic record is there, so there's impersonal people in the United States that teach these philosophies that everything is just going to happen. There's nothing you can do because you're not the doer. They even quote this verse, you're not the doer. So whatever's going to happen is going to happen regardless of what you do. So how do you respond to that? Can you change anything? If you're not the doer, how do you change? How would you answer it? How would you change if we recognize that there's some astrologer, this Jyotish philosophy, this technique, are saying in the future you're going to have this problem or you're going to have this benediction or whatever. It seems like there's already a path that's laid out. So how can you change that? Krishna says you're not the doer. You have an answer? You have some answer? How would you say?
We are not the only doer, we can desire, but how things manifest, what actually happens, it's all actually, Krishna is in control. Ultimately, it's based on...
So what, he's correct. I mean, you're all moving in the right direction here. But he's saying we have some partial control, right? So what is the partial control that we have? Try to be a little more specific here.
We just desire to do something.
Well, not just desire to do something, desire, what control what do we actually have some control? What free will do we Krishna is giving, Prabhupada's saying we're all given free will, right? But he always says we have a tendency to misuse it. This is actually the big problem. Our books and my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, he used to always say, it's written in his books, he says the conditioned living soul has this tendency to misuse that free will. So when he says he's misusing it, what is he referring to?
It's not using his discretionary intelligence.
For what purpose? You keep going. He's not using it to surrender to the instructions that Krishna is giving. He's got some other idea. Right? It's got some other idea. No, I don't. We see this a lot in America. I don't like your Bhagavad Gita. I know I'm going to go do something else. So this is an example of this misuse of free will. And then what happens, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yantra Rudhani Mayaya. This machine, this material machine starts turning. And that individual just gets caught up in this machine, and he goes into this body, he goes into this planet, he goes upper planet, he goes lower planet, he gets happiness, he gets distress, he's getting all caught up in this machine called the material world. And he's having this illusion of thinking, maybe at times he's thinking, oh, I'm suffering so much. Well, that's a good thing, because then you go, well, how can I stop the suffering? But if he's at the upper planetary systems, he's thinking, oh, this is really nice. I'm enjoying so much. Which is why they say that the demigods in the upper planets are maybe a little disadvantaged because it's so nice. Everything's so nice, right? My understanding is the demigods do not experience disease and illnesses like we do.
Old age also.
Old age also, yeah. They just live, and then finish. Right? They go quickly.
They're pushed from there.
They're pushed from there. Maybe you know more than I do. You should give the class. Okay, so the point is that the element of free will that we have, and we have it at every moment, right? At every moment. It's not like these other people are saying. I actually went to a lecture in my hometown. A man came. He wrote a book called Doing Nothing. And he was very proud about this book. He had concluded that the best way to live is to do nothing. So after he gave his lecture, he was very proud. Yes, I've concluded the best way to live is to do nothing. So you probably know what I'm going to say. So I said to him, and he had all these people. Oh wow, what a concept! I don't have to do anything. And, yeah, exactly. That was the question that I gave him. That was the way I challenged him. Because his idea was, you're not the doer. There's nothing to do. So why make any effort? It's all happening. Like I said the other day, there's a little mantra that people like to say, it's all good. It's all good. Whatever's happening, it's all good. It's all just magically happening. You don't have to worry about anything, okay? Until something really goes wrong, and then all of a sudden they go, oh, maybe it's not so good. There's some big breakdown. But so the concept is that, so that's exactly what I said when it was all over. I said, but sir, if you're teaching this philosophy, do nothing, why did you come here to give this lecture? It seems to me. And it was interesting too, he had a little book. So the person who invited me to come, he knew I'd asked some challenging questions. So the person asked me, he gave me this book. It was a little book, maybe 100 pages. So I quickly read it. And it was interesting. The whole book was about doing nothing. And then in the back of the book, he had a section that said, here's what you should do. And I was going, wait a minute, you spent the first 80 pages of your book talking about doing nothing. And then at the end, he said, here's how you should do this, you should do that. So it was an interesting thing. When I asked that question, he got a little belligerent. He said, oh, you think you're some smart guy. Oh, okay, we'll talk to you later, you know. It's like, well, maybe you think I'm a smart guy. I don't think you're very smart. You've been doing nothing. So the point is that the free will that we have is the opportunity at every moment to surrender what Krishna tells us, teaches us, okay? Which means we have to actually know what that is. We have to study, we have to come, just like you guys are coming to this class. You know, hopefully you're sharing with the other devotees. They're all busy doing some seva, I assume. But if we don't understand, one of these charts here is this one right here about the three modes of material nature. Again, there's people who don't want to consider the possibility that maybe there are some people who are just not very nice people. It's a harsh concept. It's a sad reality to realize, no, there are people who are very much in the mode of ignorance. If you don't think there's people in the mode of ignorance, then who are the people who are doing all this fraud, right? We see on the internet fraud. They're always saying that we just received a thing from the United States Embassy. These people in mode of ignorance are always just looking for opportunities to take advantage and to steal and to cheat. So even now, some of these people are very smart. They know because we're registered with the embassy. We're trying to go home to our home in California, but the United States Embassy is making some propaganda that we're going to fly all the Americans home. We're going to be wonderful politicians and stuff like this. Yeah, maybe not. But in one of the messages they just sent us yesterday, at the very end it said, oh, by the way, be very careful because there are some people that are posing as government authorities of the United States. And they will send you an email and say, you want to go home to your place in California? You give us your passport number. Oh, and you give us, huh? Yes, you give us your details of your account and we will charge you whatever $3,000, whatever it is. The prices are going all over the place. You know, everybody's trying to take advantage. And then we'll give you instructions on how we can get you home. So there's already people that are doing this. So these are the people who are in the mode of ignorance. They're constantly cheating all the time. When there's a big disaster, In America, we've had our own share of floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, especially down in the southeast corner of the United States. There was a big tornado, Katrina, I think it was about 10 years ago. It just wiped out Louisiana. Big flood. Basically, there's places in Louisiana that are below the ocean level. And so it's kind of like Holland, I think. They have these big dams to keep the ocean water from rushing in. And this hurricane came, tornado, I don't know, hurricane, tornado. And it broke this dam and just for a whole big section of Louisiana was like 10 feet underwater. All these houses were underwater. It was a terrible disaster. People were going to all these places. These big baseball stadiums were used as shelter. They put everybody in these big baseball stadiums. It was a total mess. And of course, eventually the water went down. But then there were people who were immediately the cheaters are coming. Oh, you want this? I'll give it to you, but you pay 10 times the price. You know, we'll fix your house. You give us some money. Then they take the money and run away. So in India, we know India has their own flavors of cheaters, right? Gundas.
That is happening nowadays in this time. To some degree in some places.
Because of this fear.
Increasing prices,
Yeah, well, I've been told that when you're going to the market, they're having to pay so much more. So this is because this is a whole nother class, this concept of greed. Krishna says this greed, this lust and greed are kind of the same thing in one way, right? They're just maybe lusting for some particular thing, but ultimate greed is there. If I have money, then I can get whatever I want. That's satisfying my lust. So this lust and greed, Krishna says it burns like fire. You start becoming greedy as I want more, I want more, I want more, I want more, right? And we see sometimes people get like this. So it's a tendency that's right there. So whenever the market allows it, then people, oh, I can make more now. I can make more, I can make more. So the point is that this concept of free will is actually, like I said, at every moment we have the opportunity to either do what the spiritual master is instructing, do what Krishna is teaching, or to ignore it, right? To ignore it. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing here, but maybe just at one part. So the first thing up here is just to test you a little bit. You seem to be quite well knowledgeable. So Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita that there are 4 types of people who are inclined to come and surrender, right? Do you know what they are?
Artha, one who is in distress. Second, somebody seeking someone to benefit help. Third, inquisitive. Fourth, a person in spiritual knowledge.
Right. So this is Bhagavad Gita. I think it's chapter 7, 15 or 16, right? Let's just read that real quick. Very good. You are very learned, I think. He seems to have all the answers. Okay. 15, 16. Chaturvarna maya shishtam guna karma vibhagasha Bhajanti mam jnana sakritina arjuna arto ginashur artarte jnani cha bharatarshava. So Krishna is saying exactly what you said. O best in the Bharats, 4 kinds of pious men render devotional service unto me. The distressed. So some people are coming in the beginning days of Mayapur. I was there in the really early days, 1976, like this. I was there in 76, but I didn't actually stay until 78. So there was just the big mandir at that point, and then the long building. And I was one of the few Western devotees. There was a handful of Western devotees. But we noticed that some of the young Bengali boys that were coming, and there's no harm to this, but they were coming. And when I started talking to them, they were basically saying, they had some devotion too. I don't want to trivialize the devotion, but they were saying, you know, if we come to the Sri Chandradoya Mandir, all we have to do is chant, which they love to do anyway. But then we get nice room, we get the polar fan, we get fed nice prasadam every day. And the situation in my village is so difficult. Why not just join the Hare Krishna movement? So there was some incentive, the distress of their home life. I don't know how bad it was, but there was some incentive. They already had a naturally inclined devotion, so no big problem. And then in America, actually, it's even more severe. Some people in America, they're literally living on the street. In fact, a lot of the original devotees that are coming, they don't necessarily have a job. They're trying to figure out what to do. And then the devotees say, why don't you come live with us? Oh, really? Oh, really? And actually, I know a person who lives in our town in Ojai, where I live. I met her. She actually joined the temple. Very common. They would say, come live with us. I say, oh, okay, great, come live with us. Of course, if you move into the temple, actually, I know two people. Think about it. If you move into the temple, it's not like you just get to eat and then you do whatever you want to do. Right? Okay, thank you for eating. I'm going to go out and ride my bike now. No, if you're joining the temple, okay, what can you do? What can you offer to Krishna, right? All that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer or give away should be done as an offering unto me. What can you offer? Oh, well, you just said I could come and join. I didn't know I had to do something. So there's one particular person, she stayed for some time. They taught her to put on a sari and all this sort of thing. And she kind of liked it, but she's one of these people but I didn't want to have to go to the artique, and I wanted to do my art. And it wasn't Krishna conscious art. I just wanted to do my pottery or whatever it is. So it wasn't a compatible situation. So that's another form of a distressed person, okay? Desire of wealth. Some people come to Krishna. There's another example. I know somebody who comes to Krishna. Wealth doesn't necessarily mean just money, right? Wealth means some knowledge. If I have some secret knowledge, then I can use it. I can maybe use it to make money. So there's actually another person that comes, and they like the Krishna conscious philosophy. They have some they're actually pretty intelligent. But then they think, well, I will come and I will learn this Krishna conscious philosophy, and then I'll go over here and I'll start my own little guru troop. I'll become my own guru and I'll have my own disciples. And may not even give some acknowledgement to Prabhupada. They might actually quote from Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam and look like they're some big scholar, but they don't tell the people they're working with that they're getting their knowledge from here. So in a way, that's not only cheating, but it's a form of they're coming for the wealth of the knowledge. So then they have some desire to want to be some kind of a person like that. The inquisitive person, so sometimes at my home in Ojai, where we have this sort of Namhata program, and we're on a corner. So in the summer we open the doors, and when we're doing kirtan, it goes out, and people walking up and down the street can hear the kirtan. And we have some sign saying, well, public welcome, come in, listen to Bhagavad Gita, take some prasadam like this. So one day we're in there having our program, and some man comes up to the front door with his little boy. He has a little boy, and he says, I'm coming. We go, oh, very good. Come in. And so he came in and he listened to the whole program. And then after it was over, he went away. And I asked him, I said, so how did you like it? He said, well, now I know what you're doing. Thank you very much. Goodbye. That was the end of it. He was curious. What are you doing? This is what we're doing. But he didn't have the sukriti to understand. No. This is not just another interesting, phenomenal thing going on in the neighborhood. This is not like a yard sale. It's not like some, people holding some party. This is actually your eternal destiny to learn how to become Krishna God. So he only had some inquisition, In this case, he didn't go away. He did go away. But many people, I was like this. What are these Hare Krishnas doing? What are they doing? Wow, this is different. So that inquisition can all of these things can go either way, right? Once it's fulfilled, you can go away or you can stay. So if you're inquisition, but then Krishna says, but the final one is this searching for knowledge of the absolute truth. If they're actually somebody who's really looking, I think I was a little bit in that category. I had tried so many different things. I did Buddhism, I did Sufi dance, I was raised Christian, didn't even understand Judaism. It was too complicated. It's too secret, And then I went to the other churches where everything's one, everything's beautiful, all the New Age stuff. And this is just, there's nothing of any substance here. It's all just kind of hodgepodge. But then, of course, when I'm reading Prabhupada's books, I'm going, whoa, this man knows what he's talking about, right? This man's giving something of real substance. So, and I think I'm working on an article right now with Baroda Krishna, and I'm learning more and more as I meet people in India and so forth. My wife was telling me also how when she was raised in a nice Vaishnava family doing all the artik and the things, but her parents weren't able to answer all the questions as to, well, why are you doing all these things? And Prabhupada came along and he gave, this is why we're doing it. I think this is true for a lot of people in India, right? They're very pious, like they're raised to go to the temple and put the bindi or whatever it is. And they're just very, I mean, again, our conditioning. This is the way people in India are conditioned, but if you're living in South Sahara Desert, they're not going to the temple, right? They're learning how to ride on a camel and they walk across the desert with enough water to make it to the other side. That's what they know. That's their world. That's the extent of their world. So this is why India is very fortunate, because Prabhupada said the Indian people, they're already naturally inclined to be pious. It's their tradition. They just need a little more, focus. Just, fill in the last piece. He taught us when we came here, us Western devotees, he called us his dancing white elephants. Have you heard that? He called us the dancing white elephant. They were so big, I'm 6 feet tall. And he said, you just learn a few Bhagavad Gita shlokas, as you can actually say them in Sanskrit. Then people go, ooh, because they're not used to it. So many years ago when I was in Mayapur, I was wearing brahmachari cloth for many years. And I'd get on the trains, and when I got on the trains, sometimes they would challenge the younger people. Unfortunately, India is going more and more in the wrong direction. Sometimes these young people would say, they'd laugh. They say, what are you wearing this saffron? You're a Western person. What are you doing? You're a silly boy. You go get a job. And so I'd say to them, do you know what your culture is? And they'd say, Sarvadharmam Parikshijamam. I'm like, whoa. They'd be all, well, how did he know that? And so we preach like that. So anyhow, we have free will. We're going to end it here. It's 9:00. We have free will. The point is that our free will to either act and do what Krishna wants us to do or not do it. And that we have tiny little bit of control. But if we do what Krishna is suggesting, what does he say? He says, I shall protect you from all things, do not fear. Right? This is where he personally intervenes. So if you have this, I think Prabhupada was actually asked this question because this astrology is there. And if it's saying, oh my gosh, next year is going to be horrible, horrible, horrible. You're going to get sick. Your family's going to go away. You're not going to be having any money. You're going to be living in the street. Horrible situation. Like Prabhupada is saying, and so if you're a devotee, that's not good. But Prabhupada is saying, but that's if you don't take up Krishna consciousness. If you take up Krishna consciousness, then all of a sudden Krishna says, my devotee never perishes. I will protect him. So Krishna intervenes because he's made the machine, right? And the machine is working under his instructions. It says, I know everything in the past, everything in the present, everything in the future. He's making this machine to work under his instructions. He says, everyone follows my path in all respects, right? This is right there in Bhagavad Gita. So if you don't follow his path voluntarily, Krishna wants me to become more aware. He wants to restore this relationship. If you don't restore that relationship, he wants to have this relationship. If you don't, then he says, okay, put him in a machine. Let the yantra deal with him. So and this way, everybody's following his path. So that's our free will. That's where we have the choice to either use it properly or fail to use it properly. And the rest of this here is all sorts of things about if you actually follow it properly, then all these wonderful things start happening. I have some illustrations, like a bank account. You put money in the bank. If you have some discipline, it requires discipline, Krishna consciousness. If you have some discipline, a little by little by little, then it builds up, right? Just like your bank account. If you leave the money there, it starts building up. So you learn, you come and pay obeisances, then you start learning how to do arti, and you start learning how to offer your food, right? And there's a lot of this in America that nobody knows. Here, everybody knows. So and then you study a little bit, and the more you study, you go, Krishna starts revealing himself more and more. And then you start going, oh my goodness, it's become very obvious what our role is, what our dharma is, right? And then, of course, this side is what happens if you don't. These are the 4 people who don't surrender. We won't go into that right now. The Duskratinos and the people who are not so nice. It's right there in the Bhagavad Gita, same place, chapter 7, text 15, I think. So, 9 o'clock. Hare Krishna. Any comments? Anybody want to say anything?
When we started a discussion, we said that Prakriti Krimanani, Gunikaram Karmani Sarvashvasa. We are not control, we are not a doer, but 3 modes that are acting.
Yes.
The second statement, second thing was we have to take birth again, we have control over it. Like you said, yeah, we have certain
A little bit.
decision,
Yeah.
certain control over it. Certain decision we can make, what we can, what type of birth we can do.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, same thing. So but how we can connect these 2 things? We don't have control at all, and we have any control.
Because the point is that we don't have that control. The only thing we really have control under is to either surrender what Krishna is advising, or to disobey, or to think that I'm so smart, right? This is where so many people. It says in the Bhagavad Gita, what is it? The mind and the intelligence and the false ego is where this lust is situated. It's right there in, I think, chapter 3, right? So obviously false ego is pretty easy to see that. But to realize that the lust is also situated in the mind and in the intelligence is like, whoa, because we think, it's easy to start thinking, oh, I'm so intelligent. Yeah, your intelligence will teach you how to become lusty. Your mind will come up with ways to become lusty. So the point is that if we surrender, then we're naturally going to be training our consciousness in such a way where Krishna says you will eventually develop a state of consciousness where you can return back to him. So you have control indirectly through Krishna. He will make the necessary arrangements. Even if you don't make it, he tells Arjuna, because Arjuna is saying, oh, you're asking me to do all these things, but I don't know if I can do this. Chapter 6, he's saying this. And Krishna says, but in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. And a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous types of fear. So even if you have some conflict, you're still hanging on to some inappropriate anartha, okay? Okay, Krishna will help work that out. Maybe throw things in your life. We see that sometimes. Throw things in your life. So then you go, oh, why am I so attracted to that? There's another thing, as you get older too, these things become a lot more clear. When we're young, we're like, oh, all this energy. I see all the boys out here playing the football and stuff and doing this sort of thing. And so much energy. And oh my goodness, And I was like that too. But when you get older, Krishna's designed it in such a way that the body, it's not so easy. Just getting up and, bowing down and all these things, it gets more it makes you think more and more. It's like, what's the real purpose of all this? The suffering is there, whether you like it or not. I don't particularly want to continue to go on like this. Did you want to share something? Yantradhani Maya.
One is, it's like we are controlled by the 3 modes of nature. It feels like we don't have any.
You're in that machine. Yeah.
It's like a machine controlling us, all the modes of pushiness here, pushiness there, pushiness there. So the only way you see the 3 ways choice of whether you want to be under the
That's right.
material modes of nature or you want to be under the spiritual
Guidelines of the Guru and the Shastra. Yeah.
Right. So once we fall under the spiritual, if we choose to go under the spiritual guidelines,
Right.
Shastra, then even though we may not have complete control to the degree that we have control, things will move on. Like you said, Krishna will
Yeah, because Krishna says, chapter 9, "Apichet suduratro bhajante mama nanyavad." Even if you commit some horrible, horrible sinful reaction or action, if you stay within the process of Krishna consciousness, what does he say? The next verse, Shikram Ravanti Dharmatma, that it will naturally work itself out, right? He'll become righteous over time. It's not like you step into the Hare Krishna temple and boom, now you're a pure realized soul. I'm a pure devotee. No, it takes some time. It takes some time. But if you stay in the probably use the example of the shower, right? If you go out and you work out here in the back and all the dirt and the garbage and stuff, you come in, oh, you're all dirty and sweaty. People say, oh, you're so dirty and sweaty, you know. But if you go to the shower room and you start taking a night bath, they might still criticize, oh, you're dirty. But you're in the right place. You're in the right place. You come to the temple, you learn you take association, you give association to those who are younger. You seek the association of those that are higher, right? And you share association in the ashram with those who are equal. And you share your realization. In this way, we all kind of collectively are lifting our consciousness, becoming more and more Krishna conscious. And then we're not so disturbed. We're not so disturbed. This is the process. This is actually the Prabhupada calls it the law of association. That's why it's so important that we stay in association with other devotees. Otherwise, then the mind starts, then that mind's going to really, it says in, what is it, chapter 6, the mind can be your best friend or your worst enemy. If you leave it alone, you'll write books like Doing Nothing. And you'll think you're some big acharya. It's like, no. Your mind is not your best friend. You've missed the point. Okay? Anything else? Prashadam time, I think. Prabhu.
When I got here, Krishna control me or Maya control me?
When you come here, I'm thinking Super Soul is guiding, which is Krishna, right? Super Soul is guiding. Now you have the free will, just like many people come, some people go away. I don't want to become the Hare Krishna. I don't want to do this thing. I want to go start a business. The thing is, it's not like there's a hard line. It's a very gray area. Because some people can start a business, say, I want to start a business, but I'm coming every day, I want to help the temple. They become life member patrons or something. So that's where they're at this stage in life. And they're doing their dharma. The important thing is we have to find our dharma. We have to find, Krishna says, if you pretend to be somebody that you're not, this is a big problem in the West. I think it's probably a problem here in India too. Well, you see, us Westerners think, you're going to find this funny. When I first came to India, I thought, everybody in India is a pure devotee. One time I was sitting in the Mathura train station, or bus station. I had one of Prabhupada's books. You see this? This is wonderful. This is Bhagavad Gita. And I was preaching a firestorm. And I was so naive. The man was going, but I am a Muslim. I said, I don't care. You're from India. You got to know this stuff. It's like, so we have a tendency to think like that. But the point is that we need to find our dharma. Where are we situated in Krishna is like this yantra machine over here, but there's also Krishna's whole spiritual world here. We all have a very loving relationship with him. Okay, so you may come in and you might start learning how to cook, or you might start learning to be a pujari. But and in the beginning, you're doing it because that's what they need, right? But my understanding is that the bhakti like the bees continues to grow. You might realize, I think I'm more suitable doing accounting work. So as the seeds, just like we might have a whole handful of seeds. You may not know that this is a watermelon, this is a lemon tree, this is a neem tree. You may not recognize the seed. But you pour the water and you give it the right environment, the sun, then all say, oh, look at all these different things. So we're like these seeds. So we come to Krishna consciousness in the beginning, the temple and the seva, Krishna, it's all based on service. It's not so much in the beginning, it really doesn't matter so much what service you perform. As long as you do something for Krishna, then you will see your Bhakti Lata Beach will grow. And then you realize, I've been doing this and this. This actually happened to me when I joined Radha Damodar. Radha Damodar, I was sharing the other day, is very heavy book distribution, every day going out, selling books. And I did it for a year or so. I felt a responsibility because Prabhupada, it was very important. It's still very important. But it never came naturally for me. It just never came naturally for me. I had more other skills that I realized other people didn't have. So I eventually sort of worked my way over there. So now I'm building rock carts and temples and samadhis and things like that, because that's more suitable to my nature. You're a technical person. You can see he has all the technical toys. He's a technical person. Maybe not so much a pujari or whatever, I don't know. It doesn't really matter as long as we're properly situated in our dharma, because Krishna says if you try to repress it, it'll eventually bubble out anyway. And this becomes particularly a big problem if you start assuming responsibilities that are beyond your natural ability. It's kind of why I'm a little reluctant to sing, because I don't really have any, I don't feel like I have any musical skill. But at the same time, I know Krishna can give me the intelligence. He says, I can give you the intelligence, I can help you. So I'm trying to learn more and more, and it's not natural, but I do it, and then it becomes more natural. Like that.
So his question that if we are in the temple, that are we under the spiritual energy or can we also fall under the material energy? So I think
Well, it depends on your consciousness. Because there are people who come, in America, this was a big problem in the early days. People would come to the temple. In fact, it even happened on our Radha Damodar bus. We were so naive. We were young boys, 28 years old. Again, oh, you come join us. Somebody jumped on the bus. Oh, I want to join you. I want to be Hare Krishna. Oh, yeah, I'm happy. I want to be Hare Krishna. And then we found out a couple of days later, he joined our bus to run away from the police. He was wanted by the police. They had a warrant for his arrest. They stopped the bus, everybody out of the bus. They had everybody down on the ground. Whoa, what's going on? And they go, this one right here. He's not a Hare Krishna. He's a felon. They took him back to the prison. So externally, he looked like he was a Hare Krishna. But his consciousness wasn't coming. He was example of somebody who's under a lot of distress. Right?
depends on
It's always our consciousness.
consciousness. If our consciousness is material, we'll fall under the
Yeah.
material energy.
Yeah.
If our consciousness is spiritual, then so even if we are in the temple, but if our consciousness is material, then we will be under the material energy.
Yeah, we'll be still victimized. But I think there's a verse in the Gita, I can't remember where it is, but it says, it gives the point is that you have two people doing exactly the same thing. But this person's doing it with spiritual consciousness, and this person's just doing it for some mundane reason. Externally, it looks exactly the same. But they're not. This person, it's not affected by their karmic reaction because he's doing it for Krishna. Krishna takes all the karma. Sometimes they're challenged in America, they challenge like that. They say, well, you're eating the vegetables, you're killing the vegetables. No, but Krishna says, I'll accept the vegetables and that'll be okay. Then there's no karma. Sometimes the rascal mentality, they're usually the meat eaters. When I worked in my office, they said, Bill, you're killing billions of enzymes and microbiotic things, and like the Jains, they put on a mask so they don't breathe in bugs. So these are the challenges that are there. But no, because Krishna says, Patra Pushram Palam Dayam, because he says, you offer me I will take this, don't worry, then you can eat nice prashadam. So it's all based on our consciousness. Everything is based on our consciousness. Okay?
One last
Oh, another more question. Okay, I don't mind.
So it's based on dharma. So sometimes in a devotee community, so we may have certain urgent and immediate needs. Sometimes some devotees, they actually advocate, they say that you should be ready to do a particular kind of seva if the situation demands. So sometimes we may volunteer for that, but eventually we feel that we are not giving our heart completely to that. We may not like doing that, but just to please devotees, we may have to do so. What's the fine line? How do we actually?
I think that's the proper mentality, especially in the early days. Prabhupada even said, I actually have a quote. My computer's broken, but if I had my computer, I could give you the quote. You know, Prabhupada was criticized. What he's asking is, sometimes there's a necessity in the temple. So you might be an accountant, but they're saying, Prabhu, we need to clean the temple room floor. No, I don't want to clean the floor. I'm an accountant, but it needs to get done. So you have to sometimes take on things you prefer not to do or you don't feel even qualified to do. Like there's an example is here, you know, there's nobody here to sing. So, okay, I guess Krishna wants me to learn how to sing. So I'm going to start learning how to sing. It's almost like he's arranged it that way, right? It's not my natural tendency. In America, I always let somebody else do it. Because why? It says, Strayan Sadharma by Guna. Let the people that are good singers, let them do the singing. Let the accountants do the accounting, not some guy who doesn't even know how to write a signature, right? So, yes, that's the surrendered mood. We have to be surrendered. It also says, right, the Brahmin, he can, if necessary, he can do any of the other activities. The Sudra can't be a Brahmin. The Kshatriya can't even be a Brahmin, although you could make the argument that sometimes the Kshatriya has to step in. But basically, the Brahmin has his responsibilities, but sometimes he may have to engage in some business to keep the temple going. But then he's, you know, but his real nature is to be a Brahmin. So I was going to say, so in the early days, Prabhupada was criticized for making so many Western people, especially giving sannyas. I mean, giving the Brahmin's thread to Westerners in itself, right? Giving the Brahmin's thread, he was criticized for that. What to speak of sannyas? He's giving sannyas to Westerners? Okay? But there's a statement where Prabhupada said, I knew that some of my Western disciples, they would not be able to maintain their sannyas vows. It's a really startling comment. Prabhupada said, I knew it. He said, but we were in a war situation. So sometimes in a war, you're on the front lines and the captain, he gets shot. So then now you have a lieutenant, you know, you're now the captain. Immediately they promote him because we need a captain. We immediately make a new rank. So Prabhupada was thinking like that. He's saying, I knew they're in a war, there's casualties. We're in a war with Maya. He said, I knew there would be casualties. But what could I do? I'm trying to establish this Krishna consciousness movement. He prayed for all of his disciples very sincerely, please. And there were many cases where even normal devotees would leave the temple and it broke Prabhupada. It broke his heart. And when they came back, he was like, oh, very nice. Very, very appreciative for every one of his disciples. But he knew, whether sannyas or Brahmin or whatever, he knew there would be casualties. So yeah, we need to do what needs to be done because we're in a war situation. Hopefully in the future there'll be and it's slowly things are becoming more.
Sometimes if we don't feel like doing, then is it okay if we explain to our authorities and if they understand? So is it okay or no? Krishna does not consider?
Well, ultimately, everything, you know.
Sometimes some devotees say that you should be knowing everything in future. You may have to take up different responsibilities, so you should get trained in all of that.
Well, ultimately,
you may not like doing that. You may have particular kind of flavor. You may have an affinity for a particular type of seva more, but they may say that no, you should do this also.
well, it's yes and no. I mean, the thing is, you're describing me because I live, like I said, we live about an hour and a half from the Los Angeles temple. So I like the philosophy. I've always loved the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. It's so exciting for me. I love sharing it. I love making drawings and trying to provide ways to teach it. I may have some administrative skills, but the idea of, you know, leading kirtan every day is like, in fact, when I first started, I wouldn't do it at all. It just wasn't my nature. There's always so many, in America also, there's so many other people that are musicians who are like, oh, good, they all want to do it, let them do it. Okay. But out of a sense of duty, I didn't want to do book distribution either. But I was a new disciple and I understood. Doesn't matter what I want. Srila Prabhupada wants me to at least learn how to do this. And so I forced my mind, okay, and it was good training. It was very good training. I did learn how to do it. So yeah, I think a devotee, you know, what is it? Krishna has 64 qualities, and if ultimately there's so many qualities in the nectar of devotion it talks about. We will ultimately, we see in our similar acharyas, they develop all these qualities. They'll naturally come. But you have to be willing to open yourself up to it. And you have to be willing to, I wouldn't say on any kind of permanent basis. Like I said, originally, Tamal Krishna Maharaj never wanted me to come to India. But I kept on nagging him. No, I want to go. Eventually, okay, you go. So yeah, you might have to come sweep the floor for 2 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 months, whatever it is. But if you persist, good leadership will say, yeah, this is not, if you're an accountant or whatever you are, why do we have him sweeping the floor? We can get anybody to sweep the floor. But we can't, if you find your dharma, and the man who wants to sweep the floor, he's probably very happy doing it. We have a man in Los Angeles, he's been there for like 30 years. And and he's always out there, and he has one of these blowing machines, for the leaves. And he's always cleaning the New Dwarka community. And he's very happy doing that. That's what he does. He's been doing it for 20, he's not complaining because it suits his nature, right? So you don't want to, we get into trouble when somebody who has a lot of booty, a big brain, and then they ask him to do some very little thing. And he's like, no, he's got so much capacity.
So you think temporarily it's okay to like long term we have to try and engage in our dharma?
Yeah, we have to speak up. We have to, emergency situations, you'd always, just like you guys came to get me at the airport, probably not the temple taxi, but emergency situation, somebody was at the airport, get in the car and go. You didn't say, no, Prabhu, I have to, I have my service, Prabhu, I can't go. So that's a simple example, but these things are going to come up, especially now. There's such a shortage. My wife is helping now dressing the deities and cooking and things like that because, they're trying to protect everybody in the complex by saying, look, all these devotees who want to come, it's very nice that they want to come, but the risk, whatever, some people think the risk is very big. I don't know. But the point is they don't want to take that risk. And there's a lot of very political reasons for that, because if the government of India starts seeing we are called the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. As soon as you see the word international, the government's going, well, let's focus on that, right? So anyhow, so now there's more, probably we're in a real war situation here. We just barely have enough people to do the program. Just barely enough people to keep the deity worship. So that's why we're trying to help out where we can. If there's things that I can do, let me know. Maybe I can help. I don't know. I don't have so many skills, but I have some. Okay. I think we all need to go take prasadam now. Hopefully they cook prasadam. Hopefully there's some left, right?